Welcome to the Healthy Gut Podcast with Rebecca Coombs, the place where you can learn how to achieve a happy, healthy gut. Here's what's coming up on today's show. Welcome to episode 16 of the Healthy Gut Podcast. Today I'm joined by Sarah Butler, who is the co-owner of Organic Angels, which she and her husband Scott started in 2006 out of a desire to source certified organic produce for when their first son was about to start on solid foods. Sarah has been on her own gut healing journey for thyroid autoimmune and is passionate about eating healthily and having a healthy lifestyle. So Sarah and I talk all about her own personal journey around food and wellness and overcoming that condition, and also why she believes eating organic produce is so important. So I hope you enjoy episode 16 with Sarah Butler. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thanks.
It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Beck. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So we've done some really great stuff with each other since I decided to change my health and heal my gut. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited to have you on the show today to talk all things organics. And I just love your business, and I've been a customer of yours and love your produce. So I'd love for you to tell the listeners of the Healthy Gut Podcast how you came to be Organic Angels, like what your own health journey has been to get you here today.
All right. Well, Organic Angels was an idea birthed probably about 11 years ago. So it's been 10 years in business. And at the time, our eldest son, Charlie, was 6 months, and we had to introduce him to solid foods. And I'd started to read a lot about organic food, and there was this gorgeous, pure breastfed baby, and I was about to feed him. And I was just really mindful about the pesticides and herbicides and foods, and I just didn't want to give him that. So we just looked at getting organic for him, really, just for those solid foods and those first foods. And then over time we were like, oh, this stuff's really nice. Like, it's really tastes better and it feels like it's doing, it's better for us. And then, both my husband and I were working at the time, and we're like, where do we get organic food home delivered? And there really wasn't many out there at the time. And so we decided to start the business ourselves. We just researched the idea, and, it took us 12 months to kind of get it off the ground, and that's how it started.
Yeah, wonderful. And you have had your own personal highs and lows with health issues as well, haven't you?
Yes, they came more to the surface probably 2 years ago. I've always had issues like irritable bowel and some thyroid issues and stuff like that. That's kind of always shown up a little bit, the thyroid, especially on my blood tests. And it kind of came to a point around 2014, so 2 years ago now, where I felt so tired, and I felt like there's this heavy weight on me all the time, and I was just getting strange symptoms like tingly legs and really extreme cold hands and feet, and really feeling depressed and anxious, and all those kind of things were coming to me. And even when I'd seen a chiropractor at that time, he's just said to me, you just feel like your body is just so fatigued, and that's not normal for a woman your age and for your diet. And that's when I started to explore what was going on at a deeper level and had some blood tests and stuff. And that's where thyroid autoimmune Hashimoto's came up for me. Yeah.
Interesting. And what was what's been your path to treatment and to healing from that?
Well, just the way that I'm wired, I automatically look to my diet to how this could be, how I could heal myself, because I just started to do some research about thyroid autoimmune and came across the autoimmune paleo website by a lady called Mickey Trescott in the USA. And that was a lifesaver for me because it had all the information that I needed. I downloaded her cookbook, and I pretty much just started on this diet. I went and saw a naturopath at the same time who was able to give me some things just to support me along the way, because even though with thyroid autoimmune, leaky gut is obviously linked to that, and then my vitamin D, my iron, and all of those essential minerals were just drastically low. We had to kind of start building those things back into my system.
And how are you today? Like how has your journey been, and what did you do to build those things back into your system?
So I'm feeling, gosh, heaps better today. 2 years on, it's been amazing. It's something that I constantly have to look at. That initial gut repair that I did when I first found out, and that whole treatment period was probably about a 12 months journey of cutting out quite a few things in my diet, introducing some supplements like, digestive enzymes, vitamin D, oils, iron. I even had an iron infusion at the time, and just taking a lot of kind of supplements to support me. And um, so that initial kind of 12-month gut repair, I just saw a massive change in how I slept. I mean, obviously everything else incorporated. I actually got into meditation and actually learned how to manage my stress through all that time. So it was kind of a big, kind of not just the diet, it was some supplement health, some naturopath help, and meditation and yoga to really kind of help through that journey.
And what were the changes that you had to make to your diet, given that you're a very healthy eater and obviously have an organic approach to the food that you eat? What did you have to change about it?
Well, it was really interesting. I was not a happy person. I was quite angry when I found out I had this, because I was like, what the heck? Like, I've just been eating organic for like 10 years or 8 years at that time. I have a really clean diet, what's going on? And so I had to kind of overcome a bit of resentment about that. But see, I'd have things like, sourdough bread and organic milk, and I was having lots of eggs and all those kind of things. And so when I had to cut out eggs, dairy, grains, and nightshades and nuts, I was having a little bit of a meltdown about that at first. It was full on. But
And it's totally understandable as well. I think especially given that you weren't coming from a diet that was unhealthy, you were eating a very healthy diet, and it would have been very tough to be told, hey, these foods that you consider healthy aren't working for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a real shift, and it was and at the time, like, we had to, we've got the 3 kids and running the business, and I knew that it was just going to take a lot of commitment, and so after the initial meltdown, and I thought, well, this is not going to help if I'm just going to be stressed out and anxious about this whole process, because that's not going to help me get well. So I just kept telling myself that I'm going to embrace this, I can do this, I'm going to be okay, and just be really organised. I mean, I'm a super organised person anyway. So I just wrote a lot of lists, did a lot of menu planning, and really most of my spare time during that period was in the kitchen. And that's because even though that really gave me the shit some days, that was my commitment. Weekends or time off, I would be in the kitchen preparing meals to help me get through the week.
And that can be quite a challenge. And I know that I've heard from many people who feel a little aggrieved at how much time is required to spend in the kitchen cooking from scratch when you're healing your gut. How did you approach that? You're a really busy woman. You've got a really busy business, growing business, and you're a mum of 3 and a wife and, running a household. How did you find the time to fit all of that extra cooking in?
Looking back for that particular period, I was just, I mean, it's just it's still my life today. But back then, when, I just reminded myself that this is what I've chosen to do. This is the lifestyle I'm choosing to lead. And I'm grateful that I've got access to all of this beautiful organic fruit and veg. And I just kept reminding myself that that's my choice and that's my lifestyle and that's what I want to do. That's what I want my kids to see. And so, like I said, just every moment really I was in the kitchen. That was a big sacrifice, but now it's not so bad. Like now I've lapsed, not lapsed, but I've, taken the foot off the pedal a little bit and I can relax a little bit more. But, it's still like that today, even 2 years on, and managing the kids and diet and healthy living at home. It's still my choice, and I still remind myself that I want to be able to make things to put in my kids' lunches. I don't want anything packaged, um, and I think that when it's trying to remind myself, just to be grateful for that, and I don't. I think there's so much convenience out there, and we fall into this convenience mindset. But really, it actually doesn't have to take a lot of time to do this, and I've become really efficient over the last 2 years. To make it all work. That's probably how I'll make it work. Just efficiency, simple recipes that are healthy, and bulk, doing bulk cooking and stuff like that helps as well.
And do you have any tips for any of the listeners around how to become efficient when cooking everything from scratch?
Yeah, I think I'm a big menu planner, and I never was, but now I do it because I think it's the only way that works if you really want to be efficient in the kitchen. So, like, I spend time an hour a week over a cup of tea with my recipes, my iPad or whatever, and I'll write down what I'm doing for the week, mainly dinners. And then I'll write down a couple of snack ideas, and then I'll write down what I'm doing for each night. And then if I know that I've got a day off or a couple of hours spare, I'll just remind myself to start preparing meals for the next, for the meals, say, a couple of nights away. I have a Thermomix, which also really helps. And I'll make up, double batches of muffins and freeze them, and because every time I bake something, honestly, they're like vultures in this house. They'll go for it like crazy creatures. So I got to hide things in the freezer.
Yeah, and for our US listeners, where Thermomix hasn't really taken off, I don't even know if it's being sold there. It is literally like the most incredible contraption, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a blender and a cook and a chopper and a dicer and an everything, all in one. It looks like a blender, but it's like a blender on steroids.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. It's on my wish list. Yeah. I really want a Thermomix. One day I'll have one.
Yeah, for sure. No, they're definitely worth it. Definitely.
Yeah. And where do you go and seek your recipe information or recipe inspiration, I should say, to then do your menu plans? Do you have like a little do you have bookmarks on your computer of where you store recipe files? Do you have a folder of actual physical recipes? Like, how do you go about doing that?
I just tend to be a bit fluid with it. So I usually grab a scrap piece of paper, usually a school newsletter or something, and I scribble on the back of that what I'm doing, and just handwrite, what we're doing for the week. And then I'll just kind of pull out some recipe books, and I've still got some, favorites like, like Donna Hay or Bill Granger or Jamie Oliver. Some of those guys, I love their recipes, but I'll get some inspiration and I might tweak it. So, take out the gluten or the dairy options. And usually I just tend to, just kind of work around those recipes. And obviously I've got your gorgeous cookbooks, and I use the Pete Evans Paleo Cookbook. And there's a good few paleo apps out there too. Eat, Drink Paleo I like. And I love the Mickey Trescott, the autoimmune paleo as well. So there's some really good, no sugar, grain-free, dairy-free options with those
there
guys.
are.
Yeah.
And in the show notes, I've also got a link to my my meal planner, for anybody that is wanting support on how to plan out a week's worth of meals. My meal planner lists breakfast, lunch, dinner, desserts, and snacks, and you can write down the recipe source as well. And Sarah, you and I have used that. We've run some workshops together around gut health, and we've used that for people, and we know that comes in handy. So however people like to do their menu planning, it's great, I find, to have it written down in one place, be it on the back of a school newsletter or
exactly.
on an official meal planner.
Look, I think some people are quite resistant to meal planning. I know I was, because I was like, I don't want to have to be like this, man. My life is so routine. What do I need to do this for? Can I just be a bit more freer with it? But if I didn't have kids and stuff like that, I probably would. If the kids are away and they're not around, I don't menu plan. I just, I can be a bit more fluid and just make up a salad and do whatever. But just when work is 5 days a week and, kids and stuff like that, it's just, I've just come to the realization that's the best way I function, and it's a great routine. It helps me budget with my shopping. I mean, even though we have beautiful access to the fruit and veg, which is unlimited, and I'm just so grateful for that, there's still other things I need to get, so I managed to do a lot of that online and just get that home delivered too.
I'd like to talk around your children and husband's I guess acceptance of you changing your diet. Were they happy to go along with mum changing the way that you were eating, and I'm assuming that had an impact on their diet, or were they resistant? How did you manage that with the broader family? Because I get a lot of, particularly women, contacting me saying, how do I manage my family? I don't want to be cooking multiple meals every mealtime, so how do I do this for the family? What was your journey with that, and whether you've got any advice for our listeners today?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think well, when I first found out I had the thyroid autoimmune, we also did some stool testing and found out that I had a parasite, and so did all of the kids and my husband. So we were just like, what the heck? We were all having mini meltdowns, but I remember just sitting around the table with the kids and just saying, right, so kids, this is the go. This is what's going on, and this is what we need to do to kind of, get rid of these bugs and for us to get well. So really it was cutting down sugar and telling them, okay, no more fruit. We'll just stick to the low sugar fruits and minimize the grains, and let's stick to gluten-free. If we're desperate and you need a sandwich, we can do that. And we told them it was going to be like a 5-6 week process, and they were really good with that, because we had some, gut healing stuff to give them at the same time. And so I think when you engage the kids in the conversation, and I try to be relaxed when it comes to diet and health and well-being, because I don't want to create a mixed message so that they see me stressed out and it's you've got to do this and you've got to do that. You can't have this and you can't have that, because, I don't like putting that too much strictness on it, because I don't want them to have a mixed message about healthy food when they're older. I want them to have a healthy perspective. So, so even now, when we're doing cooking at home and stuff like that, they've just got a real acceptance of it. I think they've always known it and lived with it. And something really quite amusing happened recently. My middle son got invited to his first McDonald's party, and inside I was really, and I'm like, no, you can't do that. And we've talked to the kids about. I don't say Macca's is evil and la la la. I try not to jam it down their throat, but what I do try to say is there's Macca's is not good for you, and it's not just that, it's about animal health and well-being as well. I guess I kind of give them the broader picture, rather than slamming it and saying it's just bad for you. Just try to give them an educated decision about it. And so he goes to this McDonald's party and he comes back and he goes, oh, Mum, that was just, didn't like that at all. The burgers were gross. The only things were nice were the fries, he said. So I must admit,
great that
I just
He got to make that decision himself.
yes, and he said to me, he even said to me, Mum, when I'm a teenager, I'm going to go to McDonald's, once a month. And after that party, he came back and he goes, Mum, I know I said I'm going to go to Macca's when I'm a teenager, but I'm not going to go. I'm going to go to some other places.
And how old are your kids, just for the listeners, so they can get some understanding of what their ages are?
So the Jacob, who I was just talking about, he's 8, and then my eldest is 12, and I've got a 4-year-old.
Great spread
Yes.
of ages there. Yeah.
I'll spread them out, yeah.
I think you've raised something really interesting, and that's around anxiety around meal times and food. And kids are so perceptive of what is going on. And I really think what you said is fantastic around you choosing not to bring anxiety into meal times with your family, because you've recognised that could be picked up by your kids and passed on to them, and that you want them to have a healthy relationship with food. And I think part of the journey with kids, if they're not having to eat restricted diet because of allergies or intolerances or being on very specific protocols, giving them the opportunity to make decisions on their own, like your son did around McDonald's, that he experienced it. You hadn't said, don't ever go, it's disgusting, it's the worst thing in the world. And he came back having, his palate is obviously so used to beautiful organic produce, and then to taste highly processed food like McDonald's, I'm sure his palate and his taste buds must have thought, what on earth is this?
Yep.
This isn't food. We're used to eating real food.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So talking about food, let's talk about organic food, because I'm one of those people. For a long time, I've got to admit that I used to think organic food, it's just a marketing term. It's just a marketing term to make people spend more money on their produce. So in really simple terms, can you explain what organic actually means?
Yeah. So organic is food or products made with no chemicals, GMO products, pesticides, fungicides. And there's a emphasis on healthy rearing of animals, and with the produce, so it's like fruit and veg. Yeah, so it's all just, no herbicides, fungicides, sprays, chemicals, and all that kind of thing. So what that means, usually when we, talking with our growers that supply us, they have, some of them are quite big properties and they've been farming for generations, but the yields are often smaller, so it's a lot more labour intensive, and so that's why, the perception around the price of organics is so expensive. You will pay more for it, because firstly the farmer is getting the good price for their work. I mean, we've spoken to them personally, and they're the type of people that I say they're on the front line. They are working their bums off to provide and support us with certified organic fruit and veggies. And with so much importing coming in from overseas and all that kind of stuff, and then food miles and all that stuff, these are local growers in our country who are trying to keep this industry alive, and it is a growing industry the more that we support it. But we are keeping their farming alive, and it's a sustainable farming, and we've walked around some of their properties, and some of them have bought in the past, like our apple grower was sharing how he just bought grazed land, when I think it was like 30 years ago, and he's introduced dams and established trees now, and all the wildlife has come back, and so it really is just so much better for the environment on so many levels as well.
And what about in terms of flavour? Do you believe that there's a difference in the flavour of organic produce versus what we'd probably call traditionally raised produce?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the flavour that gets people the most. Like, it was definitely the thing that when we were starting to feed our eldest solids back when he was a baby, we actually went, oh, this actually tastes. There's so much flavour to this pear compared to a non-organic pear, and that was kind of the conversion point for us. And it's often the flavour that gets the guys. Like, women are probably the main shoppers with us, but we get a lot of healthy conscious men as well. But when I speak to customers, sometimes their thing is, oh, my husband's tried that apricot and he said, oh my goodness, it tastes amazing. And that's often the thing that really stands out with organic food is that it does taste so much better.
And on at Flavour Point, I remember when I first met you and I first ordered some of your produce, and I had a pumpkin, a squash as it's known in the US, and it was literally like it was the most incredible flavour I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was so sweet and delicious, and I roasted some up, and I could have bathed in it. I loved it that much. And just the comparison to pumpkin or squash that I had been buying from a market, but it wasn't organic, and it was a significant difference in flavour.
Yeah. I think the trick to kind of get around with organic too is the season. So everything's obviously seasonal. So you're not going to get, while in the supermarkets you're still picking up winter fruit, you're not going to get that with organic produce. And I think that can be a bit of blockage for some people, because they're like, right, I want my capsicums now, or I want my onions or garlic now, but it's like, well, sorry, it's just not around at the moment. And I think, for someone like me who used to be like, right, I need an onion every time I cook, or I need to have this every time I cook this dinner, I've learnt to adapt and go, okay, well, if I can't get that, that's no big deal. That means I'm going to try using something else. And it's a bit of a mindset shift as well, just kind of getting your head around being a bit more fluid and a bit more flexible with your cooking, because you are cooking with a season.
Why do you think it is important for us to be cooking with seasonal produce rather than produce that's been in a deep freeze and we're eating it all year round?
Well, I mean, you're getting the best and the freshest, and it's funny, like wintertime is your citrus fruits and stuff like that. Well, there's a reason for that. While we're inundated with oranges and mandarins, it's vitamin C, it's full of folic acid, all the good things that our body needs that time of year to fight off your colds and flus. And I love that relationship with food. Like, now we're starting to get the apricots, and they're only around for a short time. And it's like, yes, I'm going to just enjoy this. I'm going to do some jamming. I can freeze some if I want to, but it's, or preserve stuff. It's just that kind of, knowing that a good thing is coming, but a good thing comes to an end, and that's okay. And our kids recognise that too, because they get all excited when it's mango season now. We're bringing home mangoes, and it's just like the best thing to have after dinner. And I just love it. Every year they go through this excitement when something's in. They know that relationship with, the seasons, and I think that's just a really beautiful thing.
I think it's great to reconnect with our planet and the way that Mother Nature provides foods at certain points in the year, and that it isn't available all year round. And, it's funny you talking about mangoes, because on the SIBO biphasic diet, mangoes are to be avoided.
Yeah.
And I love mangoes. I just think they're one of the best fruits in the world. So when I got through my SIBO, I tell you what, when summertime rolled around again, I was devouring mangoes. I love them. I absolutely love them. I think the other thing to make note of, and new research is coming out, which is one of the reasons why I personally am moving more towards organic produce. And I will be honest, there are times when I don't always eat organic. But just that research around the herbicides and pesticides and chemicals that are sprayed on the fruit and vegetables to keep bugs off them, they can now see there's a direct correlation between killing the bugs at the plant level and killing our microbiome. And I think that more studies will come out talking about that link. But from my perspective, given that my gut health has been severely compromised in the past, and I would still say is compromised. I'm on a journey to recovery. When I think about the produce that I put into my body, and because I eat a very heavily plant-based diet, I now have made the decision, well, if I'm going to be eating lots of plant-based foods, then I need to think about what's on those plants. And am I doing myself any damage by ingesting foods that may have been sprayed with quite toxic chemicals?
Yeah.
And so that's why I've really shifted a lot to organic produce, and with the aim that one day I'll be completely organic.
Yeah, well, I think it's a journey. For a start, it's like we slowly made that conversion. And even if you're do a 50-50 thing to start off with, that's a really good way of kind of getting into organics. And I think, with the cost factor, like for us now, I mean, even when we first started the business, we were, when we were building the business, but not necessarily like running it, but we were choosing to eat organic at home. It was like, okay, so where in our budget can we tweak a little bit so that we can allow an extra $20 a week or an extra $50 a week into our budget to do that? And we just started to make sacrifices like, well, let's, reduce the wine. Let's, let's do just, one bottle of wine a fortnight or something. Let's, not do takeaways or that kind of thing. So we just kind of, and even now it is still, the health and well-being is a priority for us. Even when we're budgeting every week, it's like we put aside money knowing that that's what we want to spend it on. And yeah, it is a journey. And I think you can slowly introduce organics over time. I think, if you're a meat eater, certified organic meat I would say that's a priority. I would go certified organic meat before certified organic veggies. But
And why is that?
oh, well, when you think about like the whole food system is very screwed up in my mind, because you just look at the amount of highly processed foods in the shops, the way animals are now treated for mass farming and meat production, and you just recent shows that we've watched. There's a lot of educational shows you can watch actually about that, and it's a real eye opener. And for me, with the meat, certified organic is important, or at least, sustainably, ethically raised meat. And there are some butchers out there who might not be certified organic, but have an ethical to their business. Is really important, because when you look at what mass meat farming does, it's quite horrendous to watch, and I actually couldn't stomach that. So if I had a choice, what would it be? I would start with your meat. But if you're vegetarian, or you can do both, then incorporating certified organic veggies as well is slowly is a great way of doing it. And the boxes that we do as well, I think, are great, because you pay like a certain amount each week, and you're getting a box sent to you of seasonal fruit and veg. And people love that, because they know they're spending that much amount per week, and that's what lasts them for the week. And it really does end up being quite cost effective. So, in the long run, it is definitely great value. I think, the problem is that there's so much fruit and veg out there that is so ridiculously cheap, and that is just sending a mixed message to consumers. And that is actually not the ideal, the real price of food. And, there's farmers that have to cut their prices so much to compete with the cheap supermarkets. And so that's why organic is probably perceived more expensive. But in the long run, really, that is the real cost of food. When you look at the work that goes into creating that food and producing that food. So it is a bit of a mindset shift to kind of get your head around and see it from the broader picture, not just the price tag on it.
Yeah. The other thing I think you need to get your head around when it comes to choosing to eat organic produce is the way it looks. We've
Yeah.
been conditioned by our big supermarket chains around the world that our fruit and vegetables must look perfect and
Mm.
big. And we're used to getting, enormous capsicum or bell peppers. We're used to getting these enormous apples that are blemish free, that don't have any marks on them. And when you get organic produce, often it might not look so perfect because it hasn't been sprayed to an inch of
Mm.
its life, and it may not have been, it hasn't been genetically modified to look perfect. And I also find that some of the supermarket produce can last and last and last, and you think, is this ever going to go off? And real produce shouldn't last forever.
Mm.
It should go off. It should get mouldy. That's nature's natural mechanisms.
Yeah.
So I think also that sometimes there needs to be a behavioural shift around the way you buy your produce, so that you're not buying enormous quantities and expecting it to last for 2 weeks,
Mm.
because it may not.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's something called the dirty dozen, and I'd love to talk about whether you feel that there is such a thing as the dirty dozen, and it's touted as if you're going to avoid particular items and go organic, you should do the dirty dozen. Do you agree with that list?
Uh, Look, I heard about that a long time ago. I'm not sure how true that might be today. Yeah, I mean, there's certain. I mean, from the reports and stuff that we read, most produce is sprayed to some degree, and non-organic produce. And um, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not so convinced about that. I think if people want to really try and start eating organic, but they don't, want to go and spend hundreds of dollars a week. And you don't actually have to spend $100 a week. I mean, it's just, it really can be cost effective. You can grow your own. Farmers markets are great, where you can actually talk to the farmers and just find out, they might not be certified organic, but they've probably grown it, without spray. So you have those conversations with them and find out where your food's coming from. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and I think, but
And
sorry, just what you were saying with the produce looking perfect, that really is a driver for consumers, is for everything to be perfect and shiny and looking great in the supermarkets. And wastage is just unbelievable and a real environmental problem. But with organic, well, I mean, we're seeing some really great quality organic produce now. Over the last 10 years, we've seen, farming's evolved and new technology, all that kind of stuff. We're seeing some really perfect looking organic produce. And but they do come in odd shapes and sizes. And for us, when we're packing people's boxes, we're trying to be very careful on quality, because we understand quality is important. People are paying for quality as well. But we're not looking for perfection at the same time. And so it is that kind of balance of offering the best to our customers, but not being so picky over perfection. So some blemishes will be there, and there'll be some caterpillars crawling around your corn most likely, but you just need to, put them in the compost and eat the corn.
yeah, and feel like you're really eating real
Yeah,
produce.
exactly.
What impact would you say that going organic has had on both yours and your family's health and lives?
Um, I think, oh, I mean, I think we just feel good. Like, we just feel healthy, and as you mentioned before, I mean, we're always on a journey. We've never really arrived, and I don't think we never will be. It's just kind of this constant journey of, because we're so passionate and conscious about well-being and health and our diet. It's just something that fascinates me all the time, and I'm always exploring. And I feel so tuned in to my body now that if I have, gone off on one, or had a little, ate something on the weekend that I know didn't agree with me, then I know how to kind of recalibrate and get back on track. And I can see that in the kids as well. And even now, even that story about my son and McDonald's, they know how to make good choices. But I'm not there to stop them. So if they do, bring home candy cane and all that stuff like they're doing, for Christmas time or whatever, it's like, okay, that's, just give your teeth a good brush tonight. I try not to just be too strict, but I think We've seen it in our kids. They're quite healthy kids. They don't really come home with a lot of bugs, and very rarely do we actually get sick at home. Since I've done a lot of gut repair and the gut repair with the kids, I've definitely noticed that's been better. And yeah, I think, it's just food is just such a big part of our house. And I would really just be so sad if this wasn't a big part of our lives, I think.
Yeah, and food is glorious. It's our nourishment. It's what keeps us alive, and it really should be celebrated, even when we're super restricted, based because we're going through particular treatments, or our systems are really compromised, and we've whittled down to only a couple of foods. I still think looking at how one can find pleasure and joy in food is really important, even if you're left with some chicken and rice, because it is nourishing you.
Yeah.
And working towards being able to incorporate more foods into your diet. And that was the one thing that I just looked forward to so much going through my SIBO treatment, was the day when I could eat more broadly. And I'm really happy to say that now, these days, I eat a really broad diet. I know what to eat in moderation, and I choose to avoid grains for the most part. But every now and then, on the weekend, I had a artisan-made sourdough loaf with organic flour, and it was beautiful. But that's a one-off for me. That's a special treat, and I had some bread, and then I won't eat it again for some time.
Yeah.
But food is glorious. It's just such a joy, and particularly when you can sit down and enjoy it with others. One of the things that I learnt as I went through my journey was that I needed to address more than just my gut health. I had to address my 5 key pillars to health, which was my awareness, my nutrition, my movement, my mindset, and my lifestyle. And given that, Sarah, you've also gone on your own journey, and so has your family, around food, I thought it would be really great if we could touch on those 5 key areas and just see if you had to address any of them in your own journey, and what you did. So if we start with awareness, because that was my first piece.
Yep.
Can you see that there were any areas or any parts of becoming aware that you needed to address on your journey?
Yeah, I think when I was diagnosed with the thyroid autoimmune, I just became really aware of how pinnacle the gut health was. That was the biggest awareness for me. I don't think I'd had that much awareness of it beforehand, and it really was such a fascinating journey. And it was like a light bulb moment. It was like, this all makes sense, and I just believe that gut health is just pinnacle to for everyone, not just for you and I who've had our issues. I think it's just something that it's can be linked to so many problems in people's health and mind.
Yep, it can definitely.
Yeah.
And we've been talking around food and nutrition quite a lot, and you've shared with us around how you got really focused on menu planning and making it a priority to eat well for yourself and your family. Was there anything else around nutrition that you addressed that we haven't talked about?
I really enjoyed the last couple of years doing a lot more fermented foods, so making my own sauerkraut and kombucha, and I go through phases with that. Like it's not like a weekly thing. Like I might have a break for a couple of months and then I'll start again. So the fermented foods was a big thing that we've started to introduce more. Yeah, and I think just being a bit more relaxed, I have to say. Like I have a pretty strong opinions about, food in general, but I'm really conscious that I'm not ramming that down my kids' throats to the point that they resent me for it. So I just have found a really nice healthy balance. And now that they're a bit older too, that helps. But even with my youngest, we still have issues with him at the dinner table, but it's a non-negotiable thing really with the dinner and what's there on the plate. It's just kind of that's it, that's what you're getting, and you can have a big breakfast if you don't want it. And so I'm just trying to be a bit more, I know that sounds quite harsh, but here's me saying I've actually been a bit more relaxed, with the kids, and I'm finding that I'm just enjoying it again. That's the stage of the journey that I'm on at the moment, is just really enjoying the process and not letting it be a stress.
I think that's really great advice. Find enjoyment in it. The
Yep.
third step was movement, and I recognised that I'd become quite sluggish and hadn't been moving my body. What's your approach to movement?
Oh, look, movement's a big thing in it, and it's one of the things at the moment that, look, it's always been a blockage in the past because I've never really exercised loads because I've just always run around for 10 years packing organic fruit and veggie boxes, and I think, well, that's good exercise. But for me, when I came out of this thyroid autoimmune and I could feel myself on the mend, and I'd felt like I'd been in this kind of vortex of, it was hard. It's really difficult when you're in those restrictive diets and you're unwell. And I really sympathize with people who are listening to this who are in that stage. And but I was turning 40, and I went, right, I'm gonna do something big. I just need to do something big. And so I booked in to do the Everest Base Camp trek, and that required me to really move and get physical and get training hard. And training like I've probably never trained before. And I really loved that. I was just blown away by the strength that, I could build up, and the fact that I actually did do the trek and made it to the top and back down and healthy and well through the whole thing. And that was October 2015. And so while my fitness isn't to that same level, I find that the best routine for me is setting my alarm before the kids get up. I'll do yoga in my bedroom for half an hour, and I'll do my meditation, and then I try and get out and do a yoga class a few times a week as well, and do some walking. And that's kind of what I do. I used to do CrossFit and stuff like that, and I found that was probably just too hard on me with my autoimmune. I would just get too wound up, like flared up with it. So I just decided to reduce that intensity and just do yoga. And I find that morning routine is what helps me get going.
I'm the same. I find that if I exercise in the morning, it sets my day up really well. And if I wake up and I think, oh, I'll do it tonight, it generally doesn't happen because the day gets away from me. And I, even though I don't love getting up early, I know that it's the best way for me to move my body.
Yeah.
I particularly love going out for walks with my podcasts. I'm an absolute podcast addict. I have about 20 podcasts on the go at any one time.
Yep.
And it's my hour on my own. No one's contacting me, my podcast, and I walking around the streets, breathing fresh air, hopefully with some sun on my skin, and it's my kind of walking meditation as well.
Yeah, that's so good. I think strength training is really good, and I kind of feel like I'd like to get back into that. But for when I was training for Everest, it was a lot of stairs and stuff like that, and that's just was really good. That's for building muscle, and so I'm trying to motivate myself to get back and do a bit more. So that's my thing for the.
What an achievement as well. So well done
Thank you.
for actually doing that, because, wow, that is an achievement. The fourth piece was my mindset. I really, really needed to address the way I approached things and thought about things. Did you have any areas with your mindset that you needed to address?
Oh, God, yeah. That's huge, the mindset. And it's so fascinating. Like the self-talk, the stuff that we kind of tell ourselves, on a subconscious level sometimes, it can be really unhealthy. So I've done the last 2 years have definitely been a mindset journey as well. I mean, meditation has been really great for that, but just reading some books like, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay and some other books like that just really helped me to look at myself and actually speak life into my body and into my life, rather than going, oh, here we go again, or and I used to write things out and I'd put it on my mirror, and I've still got stuff plotted around the bathroom that I'll say to myself and look at myself and say, and it's they say the training your mind is the hardest muscle to train, and it is an exercise that you have to be really disciplined in doing for you to see the benefits. And so I've got to the stage now, I think, I do have my moments and my lapses, but I can pick myself up a hell of a lot faster than what I used to. If doubt or fear comes in, I'm able to really kind of pull myself out of those things now, because I've got a real backlog of things, positive messages that I would say to myself to help get out. And having Scott, my husband, with me through that journey is also great, because we can pull ourselves out a bit with that as well. And we every day we've got our manifestations, our prayers that we kind of speak out. And even when life is tough, and not just through kids and family and business, it's lots of stuff, we just kind of go to that place and pull ourselves out.
Yep. And I think learning how to walk away or move forward excuse me, from those negative zones that we can find ourselves in, particularly those of us that have been chronically unwell. It's a very, very easy place to find yourself in when you feel sick all of the time. And it's hard to feel positive. But finding something that you can think positively about can often really help.
Yeah, look, it's scary being in that place. It's fear comes in. Am I going to be like this forever? Am I going to get out of this? Does this mean I'm going to get something else? And all this kind of, and I think what I started to do was I try to just watch where I was feeding my mind. So try not to read too much information that I knew was just going to trigger that fear and doubt in me, and looking at myself in the mirror and saying, no, I am well, I am healthy, and even around the whole gut area. And I'll just rub my tummy, which after 3 babies isn't nice and taut, but that's okay. I'll just kind of rub it and say, I love you, guts. I love my organs behind you. I'm really grateful that you're going to work well, and I can absorb all the nutrients I need, and I'm going to get well. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'll just talk to my body like that, and I still do that. It's and I see myself as a well person. In my mind's eye, I look at myself when I'm 60, and I can see myself as one of those, lovely old ladies brisk walking on the beach and doing yoga and handstands and stuff like that. That's who I want to be, and so that's where I keep going. Not as a sick person. I see myself as a well person.
Yeah, I love it, and it's something that I've really had to change myself as well, because I also want to be a really healthy, fit and active older lady, and I don't want to be frail and crippled and diseased. And it's interesting you talking about just looking at parts of your body, but because I suffered from terrible bloating for pretty much my whole life until very recently, I have always absolutely hated my abdominal area, because for the most part it was really swollen and I looked pregnant. So I never knew what having a flat stomach was. And whilst I don't have a flat stomach now, I don't have perfect abs and perfect six-pack, I've really had to change that conversation internally.
Yeah.
So I don't hate it anymore. And now I, like what you do, I send a lot of love to it and thank it for coming on this journey with me and healing and moving forward and not bloating like it used to. And, I can't, I'm not sure if I'll ever have a washboard flat stomach, but I don't send all that hatred to it anymore.
Yeah.
And it does sound a little bit, mumbo jumbo, but I think that when we are telling ourselves positive messages, then it helps the whole body go on that journey. And and like you, I really visualize the lady that I want to be in my 80s. I'm constantly thinking about, well, not constantly. Everything I do, I think, is this going to help me be healthy or hinder me to be healthy? And my goal is actually to go into my hundreds. I want to be old. I really want to get into triple figures. So in order to get to 100 and beyond, I need to be healthy now.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. The fifth piece for this journey of mine has been around my lifestyle. So addressing all of the key components that support you to live a healthy lifestyle, like sleep, stress, relationships, friendships, or anxiety, or all of those types of things. Have you had to address any of those areas in your own personal journey?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just, especially, the whole does the mindset thing does open up so much around that area, and I think for me now, like sleep is really important. So both my husband and I were really strict. 9:30 lights out.
Wow, 9:30. My gosh, I'd love to achieve that one day.
I know we are just, we're up. I set my alarm for 10 to 6. So I have that kind of half an hour with some lemon and hot water and yoga and that kind of thing in the morning. And Scott, we're up early with the business anyway, and then the kids are up. So, that's kind of easy for us to do. But trying, I do a lot more reading. I used to, because the kids were young, I didn't really, every time I read a book, I'd fall asleep because you're just so tired. But I've really indulged in so much more reading and reading some really good books that are helping me on my journey. Late nights don't really happen that much. So if we catch up with friends, we often do early dinners and we're home kind of for that. I don't really drink that much, anymore. And with the kids, what we have introduced, and it doesn't happen all the time, but we call our Saturdays our Shabbat, which is a no tech day. So no TV and no phones and no iPads, no games. And that means no phones and computers for my husband and I. And we tell the kids, hey, we're doing Shabbat tomorrow. And that means we often sit around and have a nice big breakfast together, and we might read a book together. We might, if the weather's crappy, we'll stay inside and play a game, or we generally just try and get outside. And that has been a really big thing to introduce into our family this year, especially, and we'll carry on doing that. At the moment it's Christmas, with busy social stuff, but it's we just noticed a really big difference in us and the kids when we did that.
I love it. I think that's great. It's all about connection and family, and as humans, we just thrive on human connection. And I think that's a really great thing that you've implemented with your family.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it's good. Like, we'll light candles at dinner time. I'll do a special dinner, and we'll light candles, and we'll kind of go around the table and tell each other, something what we love about each other. It's beautiful.
How special. And that creates wonderful lasting memories for your kids as well, that they'll look back with fond memories of that when they're older. And, who knows, they may implement that in their own families when they're parents themselves.
Yep.
Sarah, it's been just wonderful having you come onto the podcast today with us at the Healthy Gut Podcast. If people would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, we Organic Angels is on our website's organicangels.com.au. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us on Instagram because we just love Instagram. You're welcome to email us. So there's inquiries at organicangels.com.au. You can personally email me, Sarah, at organicangels.com.au. And we're around.
Yeah, wonderful. And I've got all of those links in the show notes. So if you'd like to reach out and connect with Organic Angels, make sure you head to the show notes. And Sarah, you've got a special offer for our listeners as well. Those of our listeners that are based in Melbourne, Australia anyway, because you're yet to do international deliveries.
Yes. So for customers that are in Melbourne and in our delivery area, so there's the postcode search on our website. When you order online and use the code THG, which is the Healthy Gut, THG, you can get $10 off your first order with us.
Wonderful. And I use the home delivery service myself. I love it. It's great. It's like a little surprise box every week, and then I get in the kitchen and I love coming up with new recipes of your produce. So if you are in Melbourne and listening to this podcast, I do highly recommend that you order yourself a box. Sarah, it's been great having you on the show. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom around all things organic and also sharing your own personal health journey with us.
Thank you, Rebecca. I really appreciate you inviting me here. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure. That was Sarah Butler from Organic Angels on episode 16 of the Healthy Gut podcast. If you would like to access the full transcription or the show notes from today's episode, all you need to do is head to thehealthygut.co/organic. And if you head to our show notes, you can also get access to the special code that Sarah has very generously given us. So anyone based in Melbourne, Australia can get a discount off their first order with Organic Angels. And you can also download a complimentary copy of the meal planner so that you can plan out a week's worth of meals really easily. Now, I love hearing your feedback, so keep those posts coming. I just love seeing the gorgeous reviews that you're writing about the show. So either use iTunes or the app that you use to listen to this podcast to leave a rating and review, and it does really help others who are looking for information on gut health and SIBO in particular to know that this is the right podcast for them. And don't forget, you can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest and Google+. Just look for us under The Healthy Gut. Coming up next week on episode 17, we're joined by Kirsty Barkak. And Kirsty and I met each other about 2 years ago now, and she is just this incredible woman that is all about growing her own produce. And it's something that I'm interested in myself, but I live in a pretty small apartment in an inner city suburb here in Melbourne, Australia. So I don't have a big garden. So I am really interested in looking at how we can grow some produce of our own, even if all it is herbs, that doesn't contain any pesticides or herbicides or any nasties that can disrupt our microbiome, and also have a really great experience at growing something with your own hands that can be really beneficial to your health. Kirsty has been diagnosed with SIBO, so she talks about her own journey with that condition and how she has used her business and her outlook on growing her own food to really support her journey with SIBO. So I look forward to that, to sharing that episode with you next week. You've been listening to the Healthy Gut podcast with your host, Rebecca Coombs. To learn more about the Healthy Gut or our podcast, head to thehealthygut.co/podcast. And as we are fully funding this podcast, if you would like to help support the continuation of this podcast so that we can continue to bring you future episodes, all you need to do is make a contribution at thehealthygut.co/podcast. We would like to thank Belinda Coombs for the production, editing, and original music score of this podcast. To hear more of Belinda's music, head to soundcloud.com/Belinda Coombs. The Healthy Gut podcast is a production of The Healthy Gut. Thanks for listening.